Now, before I go into any details on my thoughts and feelings about Companion as a film, I implore all of you watching this right now, do not watch too much of the marketing for the movie. If you've seen the first trailer for the film, you should be good in my opinion. It doesn't give too much away, but I managed to avoid seeing the second trailer leading up to the movie. But I was just curious to check it out. Check out the second trailer after seeing the movie and obviously prepping for the review. And wow, it gives way too much away in that second trailer. I was shocked what they ended up revealing in that trailer because it's a big twist. So please avoid it if you can, because the twists and turns and various surprises work very well throughout this film. And just the movie itself, though, I don't want to get ahead of myself by saying this, but it is great and easily the best film of 2025 so far. Though, the competition isn't exactly stiff, but still, it's a very good movie. Now, Companion is a new science fiction horror comedy, a genre-bending film to say the least. And it's written and directed by Drew Hancock, who makes his theatrical debut with this movie. And as far as I know, though he has written and directed for television, has done some shorts, all stuff I have not seen after looking through his filmography. The movie has several producers attached. The most recognizable being Zach Kreger, who previously directed and wrote Barbarian a few years ago. Now, for those that don't know, I am a huge fan of Barbarian. It was one of my favorite movies. The year it released, I believe it was 2022. That was my introduction to Zach Kreger as a filmmaker, and what he was just able to do in that film. Again, genre bending, having that movie feel like three different movies in one, just increasing the tension and the suspense throughout, delivering like really great characters, charismatic performances across the board from all the actors, from Georgina Campbell to Bill Skarsgård to Justin Long, and then revealing what's actually going on. It's a great movie. And, and I can see why he would want to produce a project like this, like Companion, since much like Barbarian, it blended several genres and subgenres together to create something not only really interesting and entertaining, just thanks to, great writing and the performances throughout the movie, but also just all the twists and turns that keep you guessing as you watch, you trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Now, the movie itself, it stars Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid as a couple on a weekend getaway trip with, friends living at a remote cabin. It soon unravels into chaos, however, after a revelation that one of the guests is a companion robot, the guest being Sophie Thatcher's character of Iris. Now, we've seen a lot of movies and TV shows about AI and robots for decades now. We all have our favorite robot movies. We all have our favorite AI movies, right? It's a subgenre that you can play around with in so many ways. And as AI and robotics become more advanced in our own world, especially as it starts to dominate public discourse, as it further just encroaches on so many aspects of our everyday lives, including our professions, our culture, and even relationships, it remains consistently relevant. So, this movie does all those things, but it adds an extra layer to our relationships with AI by exploring an abusive relationship that is toxic, emotionally, physically, psychologically abusive, through the relationship between Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, who play Iris and Josh respectively. Now, Sophie Thatcher, I believe my first introduction to her was last year's Heretic, and I loved her performance in that movie. She played one of the two missionary girls that had to deal with the affable but the very menacing Hugh Grant. She was the one that was a convert to Mormonism, so she was a little more worldly than her co-lead in that film. But she just delivered such a strong performance, and I really loved her in that movie. Here, she really gets to just showcase her talents again, her abilities again, playing this AI, playing this android. And I just love how we're first introduced to like Iris in the movie, where she's adorable and she's cute, but she's kind of awkward and at times even in cringe. And you realize, like, all right, something is off about her and how she kind of goes back and forth depending on how she's programmed throughout the movie. It just really just showcases her broad talent, and changing certain options, within her programming, and how that, all right, her performance has to reflect those changes. I really, really enjoyed her. And what she goes through is very harrowing, emotionally, psychologically, and certainly physically. She goes through the ringer in this movie, and it's just another feather in her cap in terms of her renown just increasing. I watching her in this, and obviously having seen her in Heretic, which was one of my favorite movies of last year, it made me go, wow, I want to see her in even more things. Certainly when it comes to genre films, she's fantastic. Now, Jack Quaid, he just continues to be one of the best and most underrated actors working today, in my opinion. He's one of my favorite working actors. He can be funny, as we've seen in shows like The Boys. He's fantastic in that, but he can also be quite menacing. And that's on full display here. If you liked any of his work, like in Scream, for instance, well, he doubles down on that. He triples down on that with his character of Josh in this film. He's a character that just has a very punchable face. And just in terms of how he presents himself and the things that he ends up doing in this movie, he just shows himself to be just such a conniving little weasel throughout this movie. You love to hate him throughout the film, and he is the cause of so much of the emotional, psychological, and physical abuse that happens with Sophie Thatcher's character of Iris. I really enjoyed his performance, and it's great to see his dark side. Despite him being, very funny and very heroic at things. He's excellent as Superman, for example, my favorite Superman, but here it's just like, oh yeah, he can play a villain very, very easily. And then still at the same time, like, he can switch back to that more affable, kind of nerdy, seemingly innocent type of guy, but it's just a facade over just how despicable he truly is, and that's on full display throughout the entire film. The rest of the cast, I think, is really good too, from Megan Surrey to Harvey Gillian. Probably you guys best know him for What We Do in the Shadows. Plays Guillermo in that. And Lucas Gage is also in the film. He does a really good job. I don't want to say too much about their roles in the movie, though, but what is done with them is really good. And you have some great comedic moments with them throughout the entire film, but also some very desperate and dramatic moments as well. The technical aspects across the board are great in this movie. I mean, it's not a big budget, science fiction film, but the resources that they have in play, they use them all very well. Nothing feels cheap. It helps that a lot of this movie takes place in one isolated location, although we do leave occasionally throughout the film. But what they end up doing with the AI of it all, with the robotics of it all, and just creating some like really tense and engaging horror scenarios, I think were all executed incredibly well throughout the entire movie. It's lit great. Choreography is wonderful, especially for some of the action scenes that they have in the movie. There is certainly blood, there is certainly gore, and how they choose to showcase that, I think, is also really, really good. Now, again, despite playing around with just a very familiar subgenre of science fiction, the movie manages to be incredibly original, in my opinion. I liked how it chose to portray an individual's relationship with AI and how that relationship can become so incredibly toxic and manipulative, emotionally, physically, psychologically. Again, I really like that they went into that. And, we kind of, the movie presents it like, well, these companions, they're machines. They don't have feelings. It's just all programming. But aren't, we as people, don't we have programming? Aren't we conditioned over time to behave in a certain way? Isn't that a form of programming? The movie explores things like that, concepts like that. And I really like that. It manages to be very smart while also being entertaining, and darkly so, but punctuating it with humor to alleviate some of that tension, because it gets very tense and at times scary throughout the film. But yeah, Companion, I think it's the best movie of 2025 so far. I don't know if I can count Wallace and Gromit: Avengers Mel's Foul, since that was kind of an in-between release for 2024 and 2025. But I love that movie as well. But in terms of the movies, the new theatrical releases that I've seen so far, for January for 2025. It is the absolute best movie I've seen this year. And I wonder if it'll remain on my top 10 list. I would not be shocked. I mean, certainly in my honorable mentions. And I'm really, really interested to see, obviously, what Zach Kreger's going to be doing in the future. But I really want to see what Drew Hancock's going to do, because outside of this, like, again, he's only done like some stuff for television, writing and directing, some shorts and things. But I was really impressed with what he did here. So I don't know, maybe he's going to be a name we're going to see pop up when it comes to genre filmmaking over the next few years. I am really excited to see what he's going to do next. But can't go wrong with this movie. It's well directed. Technical aspects across the board are handled very well. It's written in a very smart way, and you have some great performances throughout, both from the main leads, particularly with Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, who just kind of steal the show in every scene that they have. But the rest of the supporting cast, from Lucas Gage to Harvey Gillian, Megan Suri, I think they're also very good throughout the film. But what about you guys? I'm curious. What are your opinions on Companion? Did you like it as much as I did? Were you more mixed on it? Did you downright hate it? You don't like any of these AI or any of these robots? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.